All right. Well, we may have a couple additional people coming in soon, but we can go ahead and get started because we're trying to pack in a lot of information in our 1 hour slot. Thank you all for joining us. We are here to take a sneak peek behind the robe, behind the bench, as to what magistrate judges across the nation do. My name is Roxana Singh. I'm a magistrate judge in the District of New Jersey. I sit in the Trenton Courthouse. Our district has 3 courthouses, so I'm in Trenton. And what I do as a magistrate judge differs from my colleagues that you'll meet here, but there are some things we do have in common. One thing we do have in common is we were all going through the same selection process to get to where we are today. And I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Judge Cave.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Cave. I'm a magistrate judge sitting in the Southern District of New York, and I sit in the Manhattan Courthouse at Foley Square. And I'm glad to be with all of you today.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Judge Medrano.
Hi, I'm Nadia Medrano. I am in the Southern District of Texas in the McAllen Division. We are on the border, but the Southern District of Texas includes Houston, Galveston. There are 7 divisions, but I'm on one of the border courts. There's 3 of us, 3 divisions down there.
Wow. Judge Berzer.
Good morning to most of you, or afternoon somewhere. I'm Gwen Berzer, and I sit in the single district of Kansas, where we have 3 divisions across the state in Wichita, Topeka, and Kansas City, and I sit in the Wichita division. We have a total in our court of 5 magistrate judges, and I've been a magistrate judge for 10 years, and I can't believe I'm saying that because it's went so fast. But before coming to the bench, I did medical malpractice defense work in a firm.
Wow, great. Judge Westmore.
Hi, everyone. It is morning here in California. I am Candace Westmore, and I'm a magistrate judge in the Northern District of California, which consists of 3 divisions: Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, and actually we have a 4th, smaller, in Eureka or McKinleyville. And so I sit in the Oakland courthouse, and I've been on the bench here for 13 years. And I know what you mean, Judge Verse. It flew by, but I'm really happy to be here today.
Oh, thank you for joining us. We do have a lot of things we share in common as magistrate judges. We were selected, again, as I mentioned, through the same process. We typically will handle a civil docket and a criminal docket, but what those dockets look like vary drastically. I know from where I sit in New Jersey to the Southern District of Texas to the Northern District of California. So who would like to go first in highlighting what their day-to-day looks like in light of their docket and how it might differ from perhaps my docket? I'll turn it over to Judge Westmore.
Okay. So the way things work in the Northern District of California, I don't think is typical. Although there are other districts that handle or utilize magistrate judges in a somewhat similar way. Magistrate judges in the Northern District of California receive cases directly off the wheel. We call it a wheel. It's not really a wheel. It's a computer program. And so when cases are filed, this wheel spits them out and assigns them randomly to judges. And I believe that most of the cases go to magistrate judges first, and then it gives the parties an opportunity to consent or decline magistrate judge jurisdiction, which would mean that the magistrate judge would handle the case from beginning to end, all the way through trial or other resolution. And so in that sense, the magistrate judges in the Northern District really function the same way district judges do. Once there's consent, and if there is any appeal, the appeal goes directly to the Ninth Circuit. There is no appeal to a district court judge. And we have something called General Order 42, which, if you're interested in it, you can look on the Northern District Court's website and pull up our General Order 42. And it talks specifically about the things that district judges are not allowed to refer to magistrate judges. So, for instance, they cannot refer dispositive matters to a magistrate judge. They can refer non-dispositive things like discovery. So So some of it's interesting in practice because some of our district judges keep all of their discovery because they choose to keep it. Some of them do refer it out. So it just varies from judge to judge. And so, yes, we do receive referrals for discovery. Sometimes we'll receive referrals to decide sort of a non-dispositive motion, like a motion for attorney's fees or something like that. But for the most part, we handle our own docket. On any given month, I have a little over 100 of my own civil consent cases. In addition to all of the matters that I have referred to me for settlement conferences, as from magistrate judges as well as district judges. And I also settle cases for magistrate judges and district judges, and they do the district judges do not do that though. And so my day can consist of handling all of those civil matters, whether it's law in motion, calendar, case management conferences for my civil cases, settlement conferences, and potentially dealing with discovery issues. And when I am on criminal duty, that's another thing that we magistrate judges do. And I believe that is something we all have in common, that we all handle criminal duty. What that means is we are the first judges that a criminal defendant in federal court appears in front of. So they make their initial appearance before us, and we advise them of the charges against them and their constitutional rights. And then we might make bail decisions about whether or not that person should be released or detained pending trial. And then we also handle pretrial release violation matters and supervised release or probation matters. And in terms of consent on criminal cases, in the Northern District, I can't speak for other districts, but in the Northern District of California, we also keep the misdemeanor cases that come in through trial. And if it's a Class A misdemeanor, the parties almost always consent. And so we keep those through trial as well. I've never had anyone decline on a Class A misdemeanor matter. But I think a distinction between us, Northern District magistrate judges, and maybe some of the other districts is we don't do any felony pretrial. We don't handle any felony pretrial dispositive motions. So we don't do anything in a felony case on R&R report and recommendation. So anyway, so my day may look very busy because I may spend my morning in criminal calendar and then my afternoon in civil calendar, or I may spend some time working on civil matters as well as having a settlement conference in that same day. You know, so the day is relentless sometimes and you don't even get a break for lunch. But I will say that it's a great deal of fun. And we have very interesting subject matter. And I imagine we can get into talking about the various types of cases that we see.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Judge Westmore. I think all of us agree our dockets are very heavy and we have very active calendars. Judge Berzer, how does assignments or cases get put onto your roster? Do you have a wheel also? And what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, we don't have a wheel. Our cases are, when they come in, when they're filed, they're assigned to a district judge and a magistrate judge. So we're not on a wheel, but in our court, there are 2 magistrate judges in Wichita. We split our criminal matters that we do have, which we handle on the front end. And typically I am on criminal rotation for 2 months, and my colleague, Judge Severson, is also on criminal rotation for 2 months. And when I'm not on criminal rotation, I handle a military docket at Fort Riley. And so that is petty criminal matters, Class A and B's and C's, and that's once a month. Largely, my day is consumed with resolution of civil matters through civil discovery disputes, scheduling conferences, and then discovery conferences and hearings if the parties need a nudge, like from the judge. Hey, that rhymed. Nudge from the judge. Okay. But I schedule mediations that are assigned to me if the parties request me to mediate the case. And I write and rewrite on or edit my opinions, based upon my rulings. My law clerks are very good. They're very smart. So they kind of have control of the issues with the cases that they're assigned. Again, I have two law clerks, a career clerk and a term clerk, and civil cases are divided between my two law clerks. Case numbers assigned to me that end in 0 and 4 are assigned to one clerk, and then those that are 5 through 9 are assigned to my other clerk. All criminal matters are typically handled by my courtroom deputy, just because it's non-dispositive and it deals with those issues that they are familiar with.
Yeah, that's interesting. And my courtroom deputy also takes the lead on my criminal docket when I'm on rotation. Judge Medrano, how does it look for you in the Southern District of Texas?
Oh, vastly different.
I can imagine.
We really don't. I mean, we handle this is very different in McAllen versus Houston. In McAllen, there's 3 magistrate judges. We are on the similar as Judge Berzer of we're assigned for civil cases when they come in with a district judge just on random, and only if the parties consent. We don't do on most civil matters. The only civil matters we hear on a regular basis by referral are prisoner motions or pro se motions. Other than that, I have 2 consent cases, I think, on my docket right now. Not very much at all. Our work is more in the criminal. And even in speaking with some other magistrate judges elsewhere, I've found, so like Judge Westmore said, we're on duty. Our duty is 2 weeks. And by the end of that duty, we are ready to be off of that criminal duty. It is intense. And so when you say 2 months, that scares me, or a month, that scares me. Because
It's a long time.
At the end of that, 5 o'clock comes and we're ready to be off the duty. We get lots of warrants, lots of new cases come in, and we get a lot of petty offenses too. I mean, we're not at our pre-COVID numbers where we were before, thankfully, because the zero tolerance is not going on here. But we still do have a petty docket of at least 15, 20 individuals coming in every day that we resolve in the same day. The other thing is that our cases, a lot of them are reactive cases, and so they're not by indictment. So when the case comes in on a complaint, when we do our initials, I'm not only finding for detention, but preliminary for probable cause as well. Because it's well before an arraignment or an indictment has come through. A lot of people getting caught either at the bridge, on a traffic stop, those all come directly into federal court right away. When we're not on duty, and so criminal duty is, we bring them in, we initial them, make sure they understand, get an attorney before. That's the other half of our problem, is getting an attorney right before for all of these cases prior to the hearing itself, the initial appearance itself. And when we're out of duty, we're doing felony pleas by referral. We do the supervised release violations by referral as well, pre-trial release violations occasionally, but those are we have, again, a heavy criminal docket. I think this last round of indictments, there was 120 indictments. It's every 2 weeks. So it is a very heavy criminal docket here that we help the district judges with as well. And then
That's
our civil time that gets squeezed in on the off time when we can.
When you can, right? So do you do settlement conferences at all in your civil docket?
I will do them on referral from a district judge, or occasionally from a magistrate judge. I also send out mine for referral over to one of our magistrate judges.
It's interesting. Judge Cave, how is it in the Southern District of New York?
Yeah, it's sort of a hybrid of everything that we've heard about so far. So the way that it works in our district is every case is wheeled out initially to both a district judge and a magistrate judge on the civil side. And what the magistrate judge gets in any particular case is dependent on what the district judge decides to refer. So some district judges refer nothing, some district judges refer the whole thing, some refer it only for settlement, some refer it only for a single discovery dispute. So we get the whole sort of range depending on what the district judge's preference is. So that makes it fun because we do get such a good mix of so many different things. I do a lot of dispositive motions on R&R. But then I also do a lot of discovery disputes and managing kind of we call it GPT in our district, general pretrial supervision, where the district judge refers it to me to kind of manage everything up through summary judgment. And then a lot of settlement conferences, both for district judges refer them, and then for consent cases, we have kind of an informal trading program between our colleagues where if we have a case on consent, we sort of just ask for one of our other colleagues to volunteer to take on the settlement conference in that case. So the bulk of our time is spent on the civil side. There are 12 magistrate judges who sit in Manhattan in the Southern District of New York. And so we rotate, we each have a duty week, a 1 week duty week. So every 12 weeks, I have 1 week where I'm just doing 100% criminal. I don't do anything other than kind of the basic order maintenance on the civil side during my criminal duty weeks. And just like you were hearing, we do the initial presentments on all the new arrests. We do the bail hearings in those cases. And to the extent that district judges refer them for pleas, we do pleas, and then keep any new misdemeanor cases that come into us during that week on consent. And then we do all the paperwork as well. So all of the search warrants, arrest warrants, new complaints, and all the non-disclosure orders and everything else that we all have volumes and volumes of. So it is, as Judge Medrano was saying, it's one very intense week. And by the time I get to 11:59 on Sunday night, I am very relieved to be going back to the normal civil side of things. So, but it makes it really, really interesting. Every week is different. Every day is different. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the substantive differences in terms of the types of cases we see. But in terms of the way that the process works, it's kind of a mix of everything that we've heard so far.
Yeah, that's interesting. In the District of New Jersey, it's somewhat maybe more similar to the Southern District of New York, but almost all of our district judges do assign the magistrate judge or refer to the magistrate judges within our district the pretrial process in the civil case. So we are seeing the attorneys come in on the civil case at the initial appearance for the Rule 16 conference, and then we're going to manage discovery and the process throughout and get it ready for trial for our district judge. Our district judges, though, will handle all dispositive motions on those civil dockets, and we would handle the non-dispositive motions on those dockets. That's how we typically manage it in the District of New Jersey. One interesting point, and I'm hearing a little bit from you all as well in terms of the variations within a district based off of the courthouses. So when we look at our criminal duty docket here in the District of New Jersey, my criminal duty rotation is on a monthly basis. So I'll be on duty for a month, and then it rotates to one of my 3 other colleagues to take on their month. In the Newark vicinage, the Newark courthouse, the magistrate judges are only on a 1-week rotation because the volume is so much more significant. And if you're in the Camden vicinage, our magistrate judges are on a 2-week rotation. So you can see where our criminal activity within the District of New Jersey is lying based off of the vicinage lines. But we do modify how magistrate judges operate and function even within the district amongst the various courthouses. And we've all alluded, the types of cases we handle can vary drastically. So I'm going to turn it over to Judge Berzer. What is your typical type of case do you see?
In terms of criminal, obviously whatever's indicted,
Exactly.
just, basically like on the front end, but it varies in civil cases. And that's one of the things that I really do love about this job is that, no day is the same, and so there's all these, there's different kinds of cases. We handle them all on the front end, obviously because they are assigned to a district judge and a magistrate judge. So I don't know that I could point to any one case that I see like the most of or that I handle, because it's really a hodgepodge because we're district wide. We're a single district, so I get med mal, I get class actions, just any kind of matters that have been removed here, personal injury cases, and Federal Tort Claims Act cases. I mean, just whatever is filed and assigned. Typically, we work it up, and obviously, we serve kind of at the pleasure of the district judge, and our job is basically to kind of tee it up, for them in whatever way it's referred to us and however we do it. We take cases on consent, and that happens. It ebbs and flows. I mean, it's not a constant consent issue where I'm in jury trial all the time. So it ebbs and flows with regard to the consent cases. When I'm on criminal rotation, it's not just criminal. I do criminal and civil. And I think the lawyers kind of get a whiff of that because they really turn up civil while I'm on criminal. So, but 2 months can be a long time, Judge Medrano. And I mean, I heard you said 1 week. I thought, oh my goodness, we're doing something different in Kansas, because 2 months, and it ebbs and flows in terms of the volume of cases that we get. And so, just from first appearances we go first appearances through formal arraignment.
Is that 2 months back to back, or is it
Back
just
2 months? Like I'm on road, like December and January, which are really long months, and for both of them. And then then I go off and Judge Severson will come on, and that's how we do it in the Wichita division. And I think that Kansas City does it similar. They may have 1 month, and we have one judge in the one magistrate judge in the Topeka division, and she does criminal all the time. We just, because she doesn't have anybody to split with. So we kind of, if she needs our help, we'll fill in, like that, so that she could at least go on vacation, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So, yeah, so it's different, Kate. That's one of the things that I really love about this job. I did med mal before I got on the bench, and I get all kinds of different cases. It also helps that I was a public defender and a criminal lawyer and a prosecutor before I went to the civil firm world, and that helped tremendously with just flowing through criminal matters.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it's really invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
Westmore, in your district, I know you tend to have perhaps a lot of technologically based entities within your district. Does that impact your docket, or what do you see routinely?
Yes, I mean, I get a vast variety of civil cases that are that come to me and stay with me on consent through trial. And so, yes, I do have trademark infringement, copyright infringement, patent. I don't get a whole lot of patent consent cases, which I'm not really sad about. But I do get them, and I do have to deal with them if they do consent, and I also have to deal with them on referral for settlement conferences and for discovery as well from my colleagues. But I also get a wide variety of other kinds of civil matters. You see lots of civil rights cases, filed against local government agencies, police departments, things like that. Lots of other constitutional issues, whether it's, retaliation, for exercising First Amendment rights and things like that. We also get Fair Labor Standard Act cases, and many class action suits under the Private Attorney General Act. We get lots of those. We get lots of Social Security cases, and we get the ERISA, personal injury. We get Americans with Disabilities Act, plenty of those. Fair debt collection practices Act cases, Federal Tort Claim Act cases, sometimes maritime law cases, and we also handle pro se prisoner matters, and there's a pool of pro se prisoner law clerks. They are specifically to work on those cases. So in addition to my 2 law clerks that I have to work on all my civil matters, I have a pro se law clerk who is assigned to me to handle the pro se prisoner matters that I get. One thing that I wanted to also just sort of add to about the criminal duty is that up until now, actually, really, We've always, for the 13 years that I've been on the bench, there have only been 2 magistrate judges in the Oakland courthouse. So my colleague and I have to split criminal duty in half. So it's alternating month on, month off, month on, month off. So when I hear people talk about just having a couple of weeks, I am so jealous because we would have an entire month every single day having to do duty every morning. And then I would still have to do my my civil calendars at 1:30 in the afternoon, or try to squeeze in a settlement conference in the afternoon. And in addition to that, still try to work on all of the orders, that need to be put out. So one amazing thing that just happened is we figured out a way to reduce it so there's a little bit more equity, because in San Francisco, they have 6 magistrate judges. So they only have to do 2 months. And so I asked Judge Berzer if she meant consecutively, because that would be kind of scary to do it consecutively. In San Francisco, they do 2 months per year, but it's not consecutive. So because they have 6 of them, they're able to split it up 2 months out of the year, and they choose how they're going to divvy that up. And then in San Jose, there are 3 magistrate judges, and so they do duty 4 months out of the year. I'm sorry, 4 months out of the year. And they decide who gets what months, not consecutive months. I don't think anybody does consecutive months. But in Oakland, now we have help. So we've begged for help from our San Francisco colleagues to help ease some of our duty burden. And so now they've agreed to come over for 2 weeks. So each magistrate judge from San Francisco comes to Oakland now, starting this month, actually, to do 2 weeks of duty. And then if all 6 of them do 2 weeks, that gives the Oakland magistrate judges an opportunity to only have 4 months of criminal duty, which sounds like a whole lot still, but after doing 6 months a year for 13 years, I'm very excited about only having to do 4 months per year. But yeah, so it can be a super busy and interesting day and docket between doing duty in the morning and civil in the afternoons.
I definitely feel like the slacker of the group with only doing criminal duty, 1 week, 4 times a year. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice.
So let me just make a clarification. So when I said that we're on 2 months on and 2 months off, it's not every day. My dockets are Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoon. So it's not every day.
Okay.
But that can still get heavy, especially when the indictments that come down are heavy. But it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday every day, and they start at 1:30. So when I'm on civil, I handle my civil matters in the morning.
Oh, does somebody handle criminal on Tuesday and Thursday, or is it just
no? We don't do criminal on Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay,
yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I think
so.
we
If they get arrested, they just have to wait until.
I mean, if we need to do a special setting, obviously, the statute says, you got to see someone as soon as practicable, and we do that. But typically, our, folks are, the marshal service, the government, they're pretty much trained to know when our dockets are going to be. So we schedule it like that. When holidays come up, we accommodate. We might do a docket on a Thursday, so that no one has to wait. Now, Kansas City, I think that they see people as they come in every day. So, but we're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just because of our volume. So just to kind of break it up.
It's a balancing act for sure
It
with these
is.
heavy dockets. Judge Medrano, how does it look for you? Wouldn't you prefer to have a week, perhaps?
It's just, again, it depends on the day. I was looking at last week on a Monday, just immigration cases. We got 54 on 30 felony cases, 20 misdemeanors. That's just immigration cases. So if there's any drug cases that come in, gun cases, anything else coming in, and then also the revocation matters, the Form 12s, those initials, we do them every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. If I'm, really efficient and I work really well through it, I'm can get through my docket by the morning. Sometimes that doesn't work, especially if we need special interpreters for the different people crossing. And the biggest problem is you just don't know what you're going to get the next day.
So
One day it'll be like perfect and it's great. I've got 2 cases or 5 cases, and then the next day it's 50. You just it's really hit or miss.
is that every day all year?
Every day all year, except again, well, I'm on duty for 2 weeks, but every day all year we have a very high volume. Yeah. So I mean, I can't. I do all of my docket in the morning, and I try to push everything in the morning: preliminary hearings, bond hearings, everything related to the criminal in the morning, so that in the afternoon I can deal with the search warrants, the any other paperwork that's coming in. Because otherwise, I could spend my entire day in court, which I know some of my colleagues do, because they do like to set them with more time. And I just don't. So I like to get it and just get in and out of court, because otherwise I could be there all day and I don't want to be there all day. And that's just during court time. So that's just during the daytime. I come home and I still get warrants coming in, and I'm still getting complaints coming in that I'm signing at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, 6:30 in the morning. One public defender said, "Hey, this thing didn't get submitted until 11 o'clock." And I said, no, that's when I signed it. He's like, "Oh, you're up that late." And I said, "Yep, that's."
Yes.
We are up at all hours when we need to be. So that's our duty period.
Absolutely. Judge Cave?
Yeah, I just wanted to sprinkle in a couple of other things that I get to do. I think Judge Berzer and Judge Westmore gave a pretty good overview of the types of cases that we see, and it's very similar in our district, and it ebbs and flows in terms of how many of those we might have. But 3 other things that I get to do from time to time are naturalization ceremonies. So in our district, the district judges get sort of first dibs on doing naturalization ceremonies, but if they have a conflict or they're just for whatever reason not able to do it, we have a rotation of magistrate judges who do the naturalization ceremonies, which are really, really fantastic and fun, and hoping to get to do one of those this summer while I have my interns with me. The other thing is attorney admissions ceremonies. So we do those, I think they're Tuesday mornings every week. So every Friday, we have a naturalization ceremony, and every Tuesday, there's an attorney admission ceremony. So all the new lawyers who are being, or maybe not so new, but people who are new to practicing in our court, we do the admission ceremonies. And the reason I bring both of those up is that they're non-controversial and kind of a happy moment, especially the naturalization ceremony is really, really joyful, and people bring their families and have worked so hard to become citizens. So those are 2 of the things that are kind of the uplifting moments in the midst of all the discovery disputes and arrests that we see. And then the third thing I wanted to mention, and I don't know if any of the other districts have this as well, but we have a reentry court in our district we call it the RISE court, and it stands for reentry through intensive supervision and employment. And we actually, in our district, we have at any given time, there are 2 or 3 of those courts running simultaneously. They run for a year, and it's a program for individuals who have recently completed their imprisonment term and are starting their term of supervised release. And if they participate in the program and they're successful, which means obtaining and maintaining a job, going through 12 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy with a therapist, and remaining drug-free and arrest-free. At the end of the 1-year term, the judges who oversee the RISE court recommend to the sentencing judge that a year or more, in some cases, of the term of supervised release be taken off. And so I recently just finished in May. I had been partnering with Judge Daniels, who's one of our district judges, for a year, overseeing a group of gentlemen who were in the RISE court, and we'll have a graduation in a couple of weeks, and we'll have six of our participants successfully completed the program. And as a result of that, all of them are getting their terms of supervised release shortened. And in the case of one of the gentlemen, the district judge agreed to terminate his term of supervised release altogether. So he's getting more like, I think, like 2.5 years taken off of his term. So that's another really mostly uplifting, but there are ups and downs during the course of a year working with somebody who's trying to get reacclimated to living in outside of incarceration and getting away from the temptations and the lifestyle that led them to be involved in the federal criminal justice system. So it's a lot of support and handholding, but also, I think that all the judges who participate in the program would agree that we get as much or more out of it sometimes than the participants do, in terms of being able to see the changes that people make in their lives and improve their own lives and as a result improve the lives of their families. So I don't know if any of the other judges have a similar type of court in their district, but that's another thing just to the interns who are watching. If you have a chance to find out if there is such a court in your district or such a program in your district and have a chance to sit in on those, it's a very different, as opposed to when you're seeing us on criminal duty and we're dealing with people on, what's literally maybe the worst day of their lives, all the way at the other end of the process. It's a really, really interesting perspective on the criminal justice system as well.
And
Thank you so much for raising that. Go ahead, Judge Westmeyer.
yeah, I was just going to chime in because, Judge Cave, I don't know how I forgot to mention that, but in the Northern District, we do have reentry court. And my colleague, the other magistrate judge in Oakland, works on the reentry. She's one of the reentry court judges. And I am one of the, on top of everything else that I mentioned that I do, one of the judges that presides over our conviction alternatives program, which is almost identical to what you described in terms of programming for the reentry court, except the difference is the defendants are post plea, but they haven't been sentenced yet. And so they get an opportunity to participate in this program. It's 12 months, not to exceed 18 months, because sometimes people relapse and, you have to have something built in for giving them a higher level of care if they need it because they're struggling with their substance use. So they do have sort of that 6 months buffer, but no longer than 18 months to get it together. And they have to do the cognitive behavioral therapy. They have one-on-one sessions with a therapist. They meet with us on the first and third Mondays of every month. And so we do have that court process. And I will agree that when we have graduations and these people have the opportunity to, instead of getting sentenced to a term of imprisonment, they get sentenced to probation or supervised release if they have successfully completed the program. They are better parents, brothers, sisters, children to their parents, providers, and they start their own businesses and become very productive members, of society. And it's one of the most rewarding things that I do as a judge, and it does take a lot of my time. So I consider it to be sort of volunteer work that I'm doing on top of everything else, but it's absolutely worth it because, we talked about how much criminal duty we all do. And so it's a beautiful experience to work on something that provides an alternative path to people so that we don't have to see them again back in the system. And for the most part, that's been very successful. There are some other programs that we have, collaborative courts in the Northern District that I'm not working on, but we just started a veterans court, I think. And then there's another one called Leads for young adults that I don't work on, but we're gradually trying to build up these kinds of collaborative courts because they're very successful.
Yeah, the District of New Jersey also has those types of programs. We just started a veterans court and we have the reentry court similar to the Southern District, it sounds like. And then we also have a diversion court called POP, we refer to it as, for those with substance abuse. But it really is one of the most rewarding aspects of our career. Are there any courts like that you have in either Texas or Kansas?
We don't have them.
Okay.
There was a reentry program before I came on the bench. The judge that I replaced kind of ran it, but when she left, I think I guess the program left. So yeah, so we don't have that, but we do have as a condition of supervised release, the people, they go through moral recognition therapy, which is, kind of to curtail their criminal thinking, sort of like the cognitive therapy that you folks speak about. And they do have graduations. When they graduate from that, the judges come, and we congratulate them on that, but we don't have any reentry courts in Kansas anymore.
Yeah. That happens. And I think, I know I do want to save time for questions from the audience, but I do want to hearing how we all differ in our approaches, how cases are assigned to us, what our day-to-day may look like. How does that impact how you run chambers? And maybe even more importantly, how do you select your law clerks? Does it vary based off of what you're going to be dealing with? I'll start with Judge Cave on this question.
Sure. So from my perspective, it does. And I, in particular, look for candidates who have had at least 2 years of post-law school litigation experience before applying for the clerkship. And that's so important because as you've heard from some of the things that we're talking about, understanding more than just kind of what they teach you in law school and how to research and write. I need more than that because it's managing a very busy docket. It's thinking through, kind of thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead in some of the civil disputes that we see and the pretrial management, so that we're kind of putting guideposts around parties and cases toward an eventual resolution. And so having somebody as a clerk who's had experience in actually litigating I've found is just really, really valuable to that. And or someone who's clerked for another judge before coming to me. So pretty much all of my clerks have either had at least a couple of years of post-law school litigation experience, or they've clerked for another judge before coming to me. And I find that that's really, really valuable. On criminal duty, my clerks are less involved, like we heard from some of my colleagues on this program. But I do from time to time have their research issues, some issue will come up that I do need research help in the criminal cases. And then my clerks also, when I'm doing Rise Court, we alternate taking notes, so they participate in that program. So that's why I think if you're thinking about clerkships, and hopefully all the interns who are participating in today's session are thinking about that, hopefully what you hear, or the sense that you're getting from all the magistrate judges is that we are really on the front lines of litigation, both on the civil and the criminal side. And so if you want to really learn how the federal courts work and understand how to manage cases and understand how to manage litigations and how to deal with all kinds of different people across the spectrum of both sophistication in terms of, legal sophistication. We have so many pro se litigants versus, some of the best, the most credentialed lawyers in the world. I think clerking for a magistrate judge is really the place to be, unbiased, obviously. But I think the types of experiences that you get working for a magistrate judge are just so varied, as you've heard from all of us, and obviously very different depending on which district you're in. But you really do learn the ins and outs and the nuts and bolts of federal court litigation.
Absolutely. Judge Medrano, what about you and your clerk's selection?
So because of the heavy docket we have and how we manage, I only have one clerk. I have a judicial assistant who helps with most of the other docketing issues that we have, and a case manager. But my law clerk is a permanent career clerk. So I don't do the normal hiring that others do. He does civil work. And again, the kind of, if I ever had to replace him, which I tell him he's never leaving me, because I got him from the judge that retired and his spot I took, he's just well managed with his time and requires very little supervision. So I can leave him with my civil docket and I'll check in on it, as I can, but I know that I have good eyes on my docket at all times. One of our other magistrate judges, he has a temp clerk that comes in, our term clerk, and he does hire straight out of law school. And I think that's partly because a lot of our work is on the slower prisoner end side. So we can take time to educate and teach any kind of, we joke that he's the professor in the group because he likes to educate them, help them, get them going, get their feet going. And I think he enjoys that part of the job. Whereas I really like that my law clerk can handle the civil docket. I'm a former federal public defender, so the civil gets a little different for me, but I have that backup and assistance that I need. So it's just a little different for us. And again, since I only have the one career clerk, I don't do the normal hiring process that others do.
And Judge Berger, I think you had mentioned you have one career clerk and one term clerk. Is that right?
That's right.
And so what do you think
Yeah.
about when you're hiring for the term clerkship?
So I would say that over time, my preference is to have lateral attorneys, as law clerks, because they can hit the ground running on practical aspects of research and just the writing that they do. Law clerks, fresh out of law school, they tend to write more theoretical or like they're writing a paper. And our, just with the pace of our dockets, we don't always have time for that. So that is, that requires a lot of heavy editing unless we're talking about policy situations and things like that. But what I have found is that the pay, while it is good, it's hard to recruit a law clerk, who is a senior associate or a junior partner. You know what I mean? Just because in firms, that would require them to take a pay and cut. I was lucky enough to be able to bring over one of the partners from the firm that I came from. And so that's good as a career. When I got here, there was a good career clerk, but she ended up going to the state court of appeals bench later. And so I was back on, trying to recruit, but it had been difficult, trying to get a lateral attorney just because, just the dynamics of it all. So clerks from other judges, that would be fine for me. The new grad, if it's a new grad, I use a law clerk handbook that was created by or shared with me by a judge from the Central District of California. And so I kind of give them like a test just to kind of test their ability to write, and all of that before I hire them, just because it's such a wide array of cases, wide range of cases that we have. And so I really like somebody that can hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's critical. Judge Westmore, I think you have a unique situation in your chambers, don't you?
I do. I have a career law clerk and a term law clerk. And then I have a pro se prisoner law clerk, as I mentioned, that is assigned to work for me and a couple of other judges. I have been fortunate enough to keep my term law clerk for an extended period of time. And I'm not going to get into the details of like how we were able to do it, but where there's a will, there's a way, I'll just say. But what I look for when I'm hiring any law clerk is sort of like what Judge Cave was saying. I need someone that already has a couple years of litigation experience, because I mean, these issues that we have to address, especially in discovery, sometimes they're not so easily resolved by just doing legal research. You have to have an understanding of how litigation works. And you have to understand what's discoverable versus what's admissible and things like that. And if you don't have that kind of basic understanding from being involved in litigation, it's really difficult and takes a whole lot of time for me to have to train. And I know that some of my colleagues do hire law school graduates, but it's usually because they have a career law clerk who can help bring them up to speed and help oversee their work. My two law clerks don't oversee each other's work. They have to be able to work independently and provide me with draft orders, or if I need a memo, on something, they have to be able to provide that to me without needing someone to review their work before it comes to me. And I need to have to do, not a whole lot of editing, at the real basic level. Of course, there are things that I will do to the drafts and add things to it and tweak it here and there and say, oh, can you add more of a discussion on this topic, or did you look into this or that? But the most important skill is their research and writing skills. They have to be able to help figure out the answers to some of these really complicated and complex issues that we get. And we have to hurry up and figure out how to get these orders out. And, we're not allowed to just sit on these matters for months at a time. Everybody's probably familiar with the CJRA reports, and so that keeps all of the judges, including the magistrate judges, on our toes. If you end up with an order that ends up on that list, it means you need to hurry up and get it done. And I really like that because it keeps the wheels of justice moving in a fair and efficient and speedy and inexpensive manner, which is what, the goals of the federal rules of civil procedure are. So I do need to have somebody who can hit the ground running and who has excellent research and writing skills. I hope they have better research and writing skills than I do. I also am looking for someone who I would call a nerd for the law, because that's what I am. And so, in federal court, you're going to get all kinds of things. And so when you are hit with something you've never seen before, how do you respond to that? Does it excite you? Does it invigorate you? Because you're just looking forward to figuring it out, breaking it down, and, trying to understand it and figure out how to come up with the right answer? Or does it intimidate you? Do you think you'll end up, procrastinating or, taking too long to figure out the answer? For me, I just take great joy in taking on new things. And in federal court, you never know what you're going to get. Every day is different. And so you have to have that kind of mind, I think, for the law, and excitement about learning new things and researching new and sometimes very complicated legal issues.
That's a great point, because I think we all want someone who can really hit the ground running and bring their best self as a law clerk in our chambers. But a lot of it's also a personality fit. Is it a good vibe in chambers is what I refer to it as. And sometimes you may be fully qualified applying for clerkship, but it just may not be the right personality fit. And that's what a lot of these interviews often boil down to. And for those of you who may not be aware of the interns perhaps in the program listening in, term law clerks typically have up to 4 years, and however many years within those 4 years is up to the judge's discretion. So in my chambers, I typically do 1-year rotations, and then I have 2 term law clerks, and I just rotate them out as we move along. But it does create a turnover. Some judges do 2 years, just depends on your particular judge. We are getting close to time, so I do want to open up if there are any questions that we can answer for you. Feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself.
While we're waiting for questions, I just wanted to chime in on the vibe piece of it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say for me, and I think this is what you meant, it's not necessarily that we're looking for clerks who are like us, but for clerks who are we can have a good simpatico with. And so my clerks, I have clerks who are really, we have kind of things that we have in common, but things that are very different in terms of tastes and, what we watch and what we do in our free time and the different sports that we are into. And I love, that's kind of one of the great things about having law clerks rotate in and out, is that each one of them kind of brings teaches me a new area or a new part of the world, or a new part of culture, or new food, or something, or a new show to watch. And so I think that's why we're looking, again, I'm not looking for a clone of me. I'm looking for somebody who shares, like Judge Westmore was saying, can you geek out on a new area of the law that you haven't dealt with before? Can you help me think a few steps ahead to be able to strategize about the best way to manage cases? And are you going to bring something, you're going to be somebody who's fun to have around. You know, you don't need to be like the party person, but you know, Chambers is a small family and you spend a lot of time together. And even though, you know, technically the judge is your boss, there we talk a lot about family and, like I said, shows and socializing and things that we do in our free time. And so you need to be somebody who's kind of comfortable in that environment. So that's kind of what we're looking for when we say, you know, what's a good fit, what's a good vibe. It's not a carbon copy of ourselves. It's somebody who can mesh well with the other people in Chambers.
Oftentimes it's good to get somebody who has a different kind of experience than the one that you've had. So if somebody has been in a science background, they would, you know,
Right.
that would be fantastic because then they could really help grapple with a lot of the intellectual property kinds of cases that we get.
Yep.
And there are some judges who specifically look for those science background. So, for example, in the District of New Jersey, we have a lot of the pharmaceutical entities here. So we get a lot of the litigation over patents covering those pharmaceutical products. And so some of our judges will hire specifically someone with an IP background or a science background to fill a term clerkship role to handle those predominantly patent heavy cases.
There was a question in the chat, I think.
Oh, great. Are there any differences between clerking for a magistrate judge versus a district judge? And what's the benefit? I think there are differences. Maybe Judge Medrano, I bet in your district it's very different.
Yes, but I couldn't tell you what our district judge clerks do, our district clerks do. I don't know what their role is. I know we have some very long-standing career clerks that have been there forever, so I'm guessing they love it. Because they've been there longer than I've been at the courthouse. And there are generally some term clerks that come in, but I don't know what they do differently than ours.
Judge Berzer, do you know in your district?
No, I really don't. I mean, except for the fact that our law clerks handle all the matters from a civil standpoint on the front end, and the clerks for the district judges handle things on the back end, unless, you know, obviously there's a consent case, then we handle it, you know, all the way through. So I don't know the benefits. I would like to think and just brag about, you know, clerking for a magistrate judge and the things that, you know, you learn just like from the beginning. And so you learn, even I have learned a lot, you know, with the different types of cases that we have. So I would like to say that the greater benefit is clerking for a magistrate judge.
I agree wholeheartedly. Go, Judge Westmore.
I think in the Northern District, the thing that I can think of that's really different, because I think our law clerks for the district judges and the magistrate judges function very similarly because we all have cases through trial. But for the magistrate judge law clerks, they do get an opportunity to work with us on preparing for settlement conferences if we use them that way. Or and so they don't get that experience with district judges. And so sometimes I have law clerks ask to come and shadow me in settlement conferences because they just want to have that experience and opportunity. And so I'll let them come and shadow me for a settlement conference so they can see what that's like and just how that whole process works. And including preparation. Sometimes they want to have an opportunity to help me prepare so they can look at an entire case, because, you know, when you're getting ready for a settlement conference, you have to look at the whole case. It's not just a motion that you're writing about or a single issue that you're researching. You have to look at the entire case and look at the strengths and weaknesses of the parties' positions. And they have a game plan for how you're going to come and hopefully help the parties reach resolution. So I do get district judge law clerks sometimes asking to have that experience with me. And then they do discovery just like ours do for those district judges that keep their discovery. So I think that's really the main difference. And also in terms of criminal, the big difference is that our magistrate judges do not get referrals of anything pretrial criminal matters from district judges. So if somebody who wants to be a law clerk is really interested in having felony pretrial experience, they would want to maybe be a district judge law clerk, because we don't do sentencing, we don't do felony criminal dispositive motions. We only do that in the context of the misdemeanor cases that we keep through trial. So all of that, richness of experience that you would get on a felony case, having the matters referred from a district judge, we don't get those.
And in our district too, another big difference is obviously that all the only felony criminal trials are only in front of district judges. So if you're a district judge, clerking for a district judge, and I would say the clerks, my sense is that clerks tend to have less of an involvement in the felony criminal trials as well. But then district judges also have more jury trials on the civil side of things. We've all talked about, we have parties who consent to us, but in the 5.5 years that I've been on the bench, I've had 3 bench trials, 1 jury trial. I would say district judges have quite a bit more in terms of jury trials. So if you're looking for more jury trial experience, probably being in front of a district judge, you'll see more of that. But if everything leading up to the jury trial, the magistrate judges chambers is where you're going to get to see all of that. And then, like I said, a little bit hit or miss in terms of the actual trials themselves.
Yeah, the District of New Jersey is similar to the Southern District of New York in that regards to what the law clerk experience might be and the differences between a magistrate judge and a district judge. But I do see we're out of time now, and I want to thank tremendously my colleagues for joining me on this presentation. We hope that you all found it helpful and informative, or at least interesting in some way. We all have a variety of a background behind us, but we also are still working with a variety of different things in our different districts across the nation. So if you are interested in clerking, do think about where you want to clerk and perhaps with whom you want to clerk. All right, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Bye,
welcome.
everybody. Thank you.
All right. Bye.